Well, for Farm Bureau, policy has and always will be started at the grassroots level. And joining us now here in San Antonio, Texas, during the American Farm Bureau Federation's 2025 annual convention is somebody who is no stranger to policy back in Big Sky country, the Montana Farm Bureau Federation's Nicole Rolfe. And is it nice to take a little bit of a break and come down here to the Lone Star State and not be back home in Helena working Capitol Hill there?
It is. The weather's a lot nicer here. It's a little stressful getting ready to leave something when you know you have a lot of work to do there, but I know that Carly's holding the fort down and there'll be plenty of more work to do when I get back.
Well, absolutely. And I kind of just started this segment off by policy for Farm Bureau, whether it's back home in Montana or here at the national level, truly does start at the grassroots level. Let's talk about some of those big legislative priorities for Montana Farm Bureau during Montana's 2025 legislative session.
Sure. Well, it's not a big surprise that there's going to be two pretty loud themes during this session. Anyone who's been paying attention at all to the news or just opened up their tax bill lately know that there was a pretty big increase in taxable values and consequently some taxes on homes in Montana. So that's a big focus of the legislature. And while class 4 might not be the class that we would normally wade into, because there's going to be a big focus on property taxes, we know that there'll be a lot of implications on class 3 or ag land property taxes. So we'll be very busy in the tax committees. In fact, we had a pretty busy week with tax bills last week. And then on the other hand, there's always lots of bills regarding our property rights, specifically water rights. And as the state of Montana continues to grow in population and the makeup of the population changes, it's getting to be a bigger and bigger challenge to help people understand how water works in the state, what that property right means to us. And so we're going to be very busy in the natural resource committees working on water bills as well.
Another big topic for farmers and ranchers, especially in western states like Montana, wildlife issues, predation issues. You said during this year's legislative session in Montana, there's specific emphasis on some wildlife predation issues regarding black bears.
That's right. We're very excited, and you mentioned the grassroots policy development process. Our members have been and it's very specific in our book that they would like the Livestock Loss Board to cover kills from grizzly bears, wolves, mountain lions, which we added 1 or 2 sessions ago, and also black bears. We feel like the time is right to do that. There's been enough funding added to that program over the years, and there's a lot of opportunity to be able to help ranchers who sustain losses from black bears at this time. So we're going to try to add black bears to the list of kills that now ranchers will be eligible if their livestock are predated. Um, it's just really becoming an issue as the grizzly bear population has expanded. It's pushing black bears out even further into farm and ranch country, and we're seeing more predation from that species. So we need help.
Yeah, we sure are. And talking about the grizzly bear, I mean, that's not going to go off of the Montana Farm Bureau's hot issue list anytime soon. And just talk about how Montana Farm Bureau is working with the other ag organizations to work with Montana's governor, our congressional delegation to try to get that apex predator off of the endangered species list so we can properly manage them like we're doing wolves and doing a good job at it.
Absolutely. You're right. This subject is sadly not going to leave our list of to-dos for a while. We were very disappointed that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service made their announcement in late December that they were not going to delist the species because, like you talked about working with our partners, the Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, the Montana Legislature, many other parties involved have done their work and done their job to do the things, to put things in place to take over state management of the species. The numbers show that have recovered. The science shows that they've recovered. Unfortunately, the service is just moving the goalpost on us. So we're going to continue to keep on that. We're going to continue gathering information from our members and stories that we can share of personal examples of why this is so important. But we're really talking seriously now about a congressional delisting. that has worked very well for the wolf, and uh, we need to start talking seriously about doing the same thing for grizzly bears.
Nicole, in life, they say only two things are certain: death and taxes. Bringing it from Montana now back here to San Antonio on the national front. Let's talk about how important it is for states like Montana, state organizations like Montana Farm Bureau to work with national organizations like the American Farm Bureau, especially with this new Trump administration, to try to get some meaningful estate tax or death tax reform.
You're absolutely right. It's very, very critical. We see the things that go on at home. Those might be the most immediate things that cross our mind sometimes. But we also know that federal level regulations and laws have huge impacts on us. Specifically, tax legislation. We have a huge tax burden on from the federal level. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 did a lot to cut those taxes for all Americans, but it did a lot of good things for agriculture specifically. We're going to see a lot of those provisions expire in 2025 unless we can get them renewed. That's one of the priority issues for our Farm Bureau, is to get those done. Provisions like the current exemption for the estate tax, keeping that at the level that it is now. Heck, we'd like to do away with it or make it higher at least. But keeping it at least at the level it is, or doing our best to get rid of it. Things like the 199A provision that helps S corps, as many farms and ranches are organized as, to get the same tax rate as C corps. There's very important provisions in this law, and it's always a kind of a shell game with the CBO to make these bills not cost too much. But we know that we need long-term certainty for farmers and ranchers. We need these provisions extended, and we need them made permanent, ideally, so that we don't have to keep guessing if in 5 years or 10 years or whatever it may be, if this is going to change on us.
Well, another thing we need sooner rather than later is a new farm bill. I mean, speak to that, Nicole. I mean, we didn't even get really an extension at the end of 2024. We just kind of got rolled into 2025 with the promise that we're going to work on it, get something done this year.
Yes, it's very essential. It's I think it's frustrating for folks out in the country to know that Congress is having all of these big fights over whatever it may be, but agriculture's getting left out. And so we need to get a 5-year farm bill passed as soon as possible. I know that there's a lot of folks in Congress who are paying attention to it, like the chairman of the House Ag, and well, the four corners of both committees. We need to we need to continue to reach out, and also reach out beyond the chair people of these committees, and help everyone in Congress understand that we need to get this done. You're right. At the end of the last Congress, we were able to deliver on a few things, like some economic aid and disaster assistance, but that ended up being needed because we didn't get a 5-year farm bill passed on time. So if we're going to, in the long run, keep family farmers and ranchers on the land and in the country, and also save the taxpayers money, we need to get some certainty in place.
I just kind of want to wrap up, Nicole. I mean, you spend a lot of time back in Washington, D.C., lobbying, meeting with members of Congress, meeting with agency personnel. You bring other leaders, volunteer leaders from the Montana Farm Bureau and directors back there. How important is it to keep those conversations going, whether it's yourself or Cindy or now Casey, the president and vice president of Montana Farm Bureau, and other state leaders and volunteer leaders, to keep that conversation going, especially with this changeover in administration and the agency personnel?
I think it's incredibly important. A lot of people, we're back at home taking care of the farm or the ranch, and Washington, D.C. seems like a long ways away. And it seems like a frustrating place where things aren't necessarily getting done, or people don't care about what we need. But what I usually find when I'm having meetings in DC, and what my members have given me feedback about when we're out there, is it's actually kind of surprising how touchable government can be. They do want to hear from us, and they need to hear from us. And um, it gives you encouragement that there are some really good folks out there working, whether they're committee staff, elected officials, agency folks. Now, there's others you're not going to see eye to eye to, or eye to eye with. But um, it's really important that we don't give them the out of saying, well, I haven't heard about this. When we make the trip out there and say the words to their face, it shows how important it is.
Absolutely, and let's just end on that. Again, we've been visiting with the Montana Farm Bureau Federation's Nicole Rolfe, catching up this time here in San Antonio, Texas at the American Farm Bureau Federation's annual convention. Again, as we heard Farm Bureau President Zippy Duval tell us during the opening general session, boy, power does come in numbers, and when agriculture gets together and speaks with one unified voice, a lot can get done, especially in the area of public and farm policy. And while we're talking about that, it's never too early to make plans to attend next year's Farm Bureau Convention and Trade Show. As we do this in the Lone Star State next year, it's headed to California, Anaheim, California to be more specific. You can get more details online by visiting fb.org.